Ranvir's gaze went on Mahi's face, which was covered with small tears. Her eyes were swollen due to tears, and her little nose was completely red. Still, she was looking very beautiful. Ranvir was able to see the anger in Mahi's wet eyes very well. He put the hair on Mahi's face behind her ears with his fingers, and said in a calm but deep voice, "Why do you always do the same work for which I forbid you? Aren't you even a little afraid of this, Jan, that I can punish you like every time?" While saying this, Ranvir's gaze was on Mahi's trembling lips. Mahi asked with a little confusion and fear, "What have I done this time that you are behaving like this with me?" Ranvir asked without turning the matter around, "Why did you go with Vedant yesterday?" Asking this, his eyes became deep, and he began to see in Mahi's eyes. Mahi said in fear, "That my friendship with Vedant." Saying this, Mahi suddenly became quiet, because she remembered what happened last time, that how Ranvir had punished her. As soon as she remembered, Mahi began to look at Ranvir with fear. While Mahi's words were enough to instigate Ranvir's fire of anger. Ranvir's eyes were filled with anger, and he said in one word, "I had told you to stay away from him, and you even befriended him." Saying this, his grip tightened on both Mahi's hands. Mahi said to herself, "It is not wrong to befriend someone, and now will you decide whom I want to befriend and whom not?" Thinking this, she also said angrily to Ranvir, "Don't you think you have no right on me? And whom I want to befriend and whom not, it should be my decision, not yours." Mahi said this to say, but she was very scared inside. While Mahi said so much that Ranvir's anger was out of control. He said with a creepy smile, "What did you say? Right? So today I will tell you how much right I have on you." Saying this, he put his hard lips on Mahi's soft lips and began to punish her. He began to kiss her passionately. This kiss was more of a punishment for Mahi than a kiss, because Ranvir was also biting her. As if he was venting all his anger on Mahi, and showing that only I have a right on you. Mahi began to struggle to get rid of Ranvir. Tears were flowing from her eyes because of the pain. She felt that she was suffocating. She was not even able to breathe. After a while, Ranvir moved away from Mahi a little. Because of the bite, there was a cut in Mahi's lip, and that cut was bleeding a little. Mahi was now taking long breaths. She felt that if Ranvir hadn't left her, she would have died of suffocation today. Ranvir said with his thumb on Mahi's lips, "Now do you understand what and how much right I have on you?" Then he said with a mysterious smile, "Whatever Ranvir Roy Kapoor likes, he has a right on it himself. But you." Ranvir left his words mysteriously incomplete, and got up from Mahi. Mahi was also getting very angry at Ranvir, because now all this was out of her control. Mahi also got up from the bed quickly and said to Ranvir, "I am nothing, Ranvir Roy Kapoor, that if you like it, then you start understanding your right on me." Mahi had spoken to Ranvir in this tone for the first time today. Ranvir, who put his hand in his pocket, was standing with his feet towards Mahi. After hearing Mahi's words, he first put his head down and started laughing. Then he turned towards Mahi and started looking at her with one eyebrow. As if he is saying, "Do you think I am going to care a little about what you say?" Then he came close to Mahi and looked into her eyes and said, "You are talking about the right, aren't you? Come on, so today I will also get that right." Saying this, a devil smile came on his face. Mahi opened her eyes and started looking at him, and started thinking in her mind, now what is he going to do? Ranvir picked up the papers from the table and threw them on the bed and said, "Sign it." Mahi said to Ranvir while looking at the papers with confusion, "What is this?" But Ranvir did not answer him. Then Mahi picked up the papers and started reading. As she was reading the papers, her eyes were getting bigger with surprise. She looked angrily at Ranvir and said, "Have you lost your mind? How did you even think that I will marry you?" Ranvir also said with a bitter smile, "Okay, then stay with me without getting married, I have no problem." Mahi was getting scared to see this madness of Ranvir and Ranvir. Then Ranvir said, "You have two options. First sign it and go home. This will make you legally my wife. But as husband and wife, we will start our lives when our marriage will be done in front of the whole family. And second option, from today and from now, you stay with me. After hearing Ranvir's words, Mahi was looking at Ranvir with a mixed feeling of surprise and anger. In all this time, she had understood that Ranvir is very stubborn. But today, to fulfill his stubbornness, he was crossing his limits. Mahi just wanted to somehow get out of here and run away. She thought of making one last attempt. And almost shivering, she said to Ranvir, "Look Ranvir, this is wrong. You can't forcefully marry me like this. Let me go, please." Saying this, Mahi joined her hands. But Ranvir was Ranvir. Once he made up his mind to do something, he would do it. And in front of Ranvir's stubbornness, till date Mahi had never walked the path that she walks today. Ranvir said only this in his cold tone, "Sign it." Mahi was also seeing only this way to go from here. She thought that maybe she will go home and tell her family about this, then they will save her from Ranvir. While Ranvir saw Mahi's face and understood what was going on in his mind at that time. For Ranvir, reading someone's face was not a big deal. Then this was Mahi, whose eyes used to tell everything. Mahi wiped the tears flowing from her eyes from the back of her palm and signed on those papers. Seeing Mahi do this, Ranvir's face expression, which was still cold, changed for a while. Now there was a peace on his face, but he did not want to show this in front of Mahi. Mahi signed and looked at him while moving the papers towards Ranvir. So the first expression on Ranvir's face came back again. Mahi had a pain in her eyes. She started looking at Ranvir with tears in her eyes and started thinking, "What did I do to you, that you did this to me?" Ranvir looked at the papers one by one and then looked at Mahi. Then he grabbed her by the waist and brought her close to him. Then he took her lips near Mahi's ears and said in his magnetic voice, "Congratulations Mrs. Mahi Ranvir Roy Kapoor, now you are my legal wife and totally mine. Now you only have my right." Saying this, he kissed Mahi's earlobe. Then he looked into Mahi's eyes and said, "By the way, if you want, you can also tell your family so that I can marry you as soon as possible. Because legally, you are already my wife. So now even if they want, they can't separate you from me. And I want to bring you home as soon as possible and then we are like a good husband and wife in the same house, in the same room, on the same bed." Ranvir said the last line in a very seductive tone, which made Mahi's body tremble. Mahi had understood that she could not do anything now. Mahi could not believe that her life had changed in these few hours. Mahi burst into tears and started hitting Ranvir on the chest. Ranvir, with such a calm face, put his hand in his pocket and looked at Mahi for a while. Mahi said in tears, I hate you, you are very bad, I will never love you." Then while crying, she started hiccuping. Seeing this, Ranvir held Mahi's hand and put his lips on her lips. Ranvir was kissing her very softly. Mahi closed her eyes and calmed down in a while. When Ranvir felt that Mahi had calmed down, he separated from her and put his lips on Mahi's forehead. Then he looked at Mahi's face, which was still looking down. Ranvir asked in a calm tone, "Do you want to go home?" Mahi nodded like a small child and said, Seeing Mahi do this, Ranvir smiled. He asked Mahi again, "I am very bad, right?" Mahi nodded again and said, "Yes." How can Ranvir not love Mahi's innocence? He pulled Mahi and hugged her from his chest and started caressing her head. Then he said to Mahi, "Get ready and come down. I am waiting for you downstairs." Saying this, he left the room. In a little while, Mahi came down, but she didn't look at Ranvir even once. Ranvir looked at Mahi with one eye and then he held her hand and went out. Mahi also bowed her head and started following him. Ranvir made her sit on the front seat and put her seat belt on. Then he sat on his seat and started driving. It was 7 o'clock in the evening and it was getting slightly dark. Mahi was looking out of the window. Then Ranvir called out to Mahi, "Mahi?" But Mahi didn't answer. She just sat and looked outside. Ranvir took a deep breath and started paying attention to the driving. In a little while, Mahi's house arrived. Ranvir came out of the car and he opened the door to Mahi. Mahi got out of the car and ran into the house. Mahi ran away as if she had been released from prison for so many days. And if she stayed a little longer, Ranvir would take her back with him. Ranvir kept looking at her until Mahi was blinded by her eyes. Then Ranvir came back to his seat and sat down. He looked at Mahi's house and then left while driving. Mahi came to her room while running and closed the door and started crying there. The family hadn't come yet and they were all supposed to come by 10 o'clock in the evening. After crying for a long time, Mahi got up and came to her bed and lay down. But her tears hadn't stopped flowing yet. Meanwhile, Ranvir's car was running at full speed on a deserted road. Ranvir was in a deep thought. In front of his eyes, Mahi's face was getting wet with tears again and again. Then his phone rang. Ranvir looked at the phone and Rudra's name was flashing on it. When Ranvir received the phone, Rudra asked in a little complaining tone, "Ranvir, where are you? I found out that you came back from Mumbai and you didn't even tell me." Ranvir just said, "Yes, I have come back." Rudra said, "I have come to meet you right now and I found out that you had brought a girl here. What is going on? You tell me where you are right now. I am coming there." After hearing this, Ranvir told him the place and disconnected the phone. How will this step of Ranvir affect Mahi's future life? To know more, keep listening to Oh Baby only on Love Pulse Diaries.